Betrayal is one of the deepest wounds a person can experience. It doesn't just hurt the heart, it shakes the very foundation of trust and security. When someone you believed in turns their back on you, it can leave you questioning everything, your choices, your worth, even your faith. The pain is real and the disappointment is heavy, but what feels like a breaking point is often a turning point in disguise. God is not surprised by betrayal. He sees it before it happens, and he allows it because he knows how to use it for something greater. When someone walks away, when they deceive you, when they reject you, it feels personal. You wonder if you could have done something different, if you should have seen it coming, if you were simply not enough for them. But the truth is, their actions are not a reflection of your worth. They are a revelation of their character. Betrayal is often the final step before elevation. Look at the life of Joseph. His own brothers sold him into slavery. They stripped him of his coat, but they couldn't strip him of his calling. What they did in secret, God used to position him for greatness. Had they never betrayed him, he would have never ended up in Egypt. Had he never gone to Egypt, he wouldn't have been in the place God needed him to be to fulfill his destiny. God allows betrayal because it exposes what needs to be removed. Some people are not meant to go where he is taking you. They might have started with you, but they don't have the heart to finish with you. And sometimes you will let go of certain people, so God lets them betray you so you can finally release them. It's painful, but necessary. You can't take disloyalty into destiny. You can't carry people who don't truly value you into the places God is preparing for you. But betrayal is not just about losing people, it's about gaining perspective. It teaches you who is truly for you and who is only there for what you could offer. It teaches you to lean on God, to find strength in Him instead of relying on human validation. Some of the strongest warriors in faith have walked through seasons of betrayal. Jesus himself was betrayed by Judas, someone who walked with him, ate with him, and shared life with him. But even in that, God's plan was at work. Judas thought he was ending Jesus' ministry, but he was actually setting the stage for salvation. When betrayal happens, it is tempting to focus on the pain, to seek revenge, to prove yourself. But God does not need you to fight that battle. He does not need you to beg anyone to stay. He needs you to trust Him. He needs you to believe that if someone could walk away, they were never meant to be part of your next chapter. He needs you to understand that betrayal is often the tool He uses to push you into your purpose. Growth comes through pruning. A tree that bears fruit has to be pruned, and pruning is a cutting process. It may feel like you are losing, but in reality, you are making room for more. God is preparing something better for you, but sometimes He has to allow betrayal to remove what is blocking your blessing. It may feel unfair, it may feel cruel, but it is part of the preparation. You are not being punished, you are being positioned. The people who betrayed you thought they were hurting you, but they were unknowingly pushing you into the very place God designed for you. If you are dealing with betrayal, do not let bitterness take root in your heart. Do not let it stop you from believing that something greater is ahead. This is not the end of your story. What was meant to break you is the very thing God will use to build you. Betrayal is not the end of your story. It is not a detour, it is a setup. When people betray you, lie about you, walk away from you, or turn their backs on you, they may think they have won. They may believe they have put you in a position of loss, that they have damaged your future. But what they fail to realize is that God does not allow anything to happen without purpose. When they betrayed you, they thought they were burying you, but they were actually planting you. What was meant to harm you will be the very thing God uses to elevate you. There are moments in life when people's true intentions are revealed. Someone you trusted, someone you confided in, someone you helped, suddenly shows you that they were never truly for you. It hurts, but it also brings clarity. It strips away the illusion and exposes what was hidden beneath the surface. It may feel like a loss, but in reality it is a gain. When people walk away, when they betray you, when they no longer stand by your side, they are clearing the way for what God has in store. In the Bible, Joseph experienced betrayal in the worst way. His own brothers, the ones who should have protected him, loved him, and stood by him, sold him into slavery. They did it out of jealousy. They did it because they couldn't stand the favor that was on his life. They thought they were destroying him, but they were actually positioning him for the very purpose God had planned. Had Joseph not been betrayed, he never would have ended up in Egypt. Had he never ended up in Egypt, he never would have risen to power. The very thing his brothers did to harm him was the thing God used to elevate him. God works in ways that do not always make sense in the moment. When betrayal happens, it is easy to feel like you have been abandoned, forgotten, or left to suffer. But God sees the bigger picture. He knows how to take what was meant for your destruction and use it for your destiny. The very people who tried to break you will one day witness the blessing that comes from the betrayal. They may have thrown you into a pit, but they will have to watch as God raises you to a position they never imagined. Jesus himself was betrayed. Judas, one of his own disciples, sold him out for 30 pieces of silver. It was a painful betrayal, but even that was part of the divine plan. What looked like the end was actually the beginning of something greater. Without that betrayal, the path to salvation would not have been fulfilled. God allowed it because he knew that what seemed like defeat would ultimately lead to victory. There are people in your life who cannot handle where God is taking you. They may have been with you for a season, but they were not meant to stay for the elevation. Sometimes betrayal is God's way of removing what cannot go with you into the next level. It is painful, but it is necessary. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and see that what was meant to harm you actually propelled you forward. When people betray you, when they lie about you, when they try to bring you down, they are not in control of your destiny. They may think they have the power to ruin you, but they do not have the final say. God does. He sees the betrayal. He sees the hurt, and he has already prepared a comeback that is greater than the setback. What was done in secret, what was meant to destroy you, will be turned into a testimony of God's faithfulness. When betrayal happens, it feels like everything is falling apart. The people you trusted, the ones you thought would stand by your side, suddenly turn against you. The pain is real, and the questions are endless. Why did this happen? Why did God allow it? But what may seem like a season of loss is actually a season of preparation. God is not punishing you, he is positioning you. Separation is often a sign that God is preparing you for something greater. Throughout life, there are moments when certain people, situations, or comforts are stripped away. It is uncomfortable, sometimes even unbearable, but it is necessary. When God has a calling on your life, he will not allow you to stay in places that will limit your potential. He will remove the people who cannot go where he is taking you. Some betrayals happen because God is exposing what you could not see. You may have thought someone was for you, but their actions proved otherwise. Instead of allowing that person to hinder your future, God lets them reveal themselves so you can move forward without them. Look at the story of Joseph. His brothers betrayed him, selling him into slavery, and for years, it seemed like his life was only going downhill. But every painful moment, every false accusation, every season of isolation was preparing him for something greater. Had he stayed with his family, he never would have reached the position God had for him. His separation was painful, but it was necessary. What looked like rejection was actually redirection. God removes people and situations to prepare you for the next level. Sometimes we hold on to relationships, jobs, or even mindsets that no longer serve our purpose. We get comfortable, even in places that are not meant for us. But God loves us too much to let us settle. So he allows a separation to take place. He allows people to betray us, to walk away, or to show their true colors, not to break us, but to free us. Jesus also experienced separation before his greatest moment. Before he fulfilled his purpose on the cross, he was betrayed by Judas, denied by Peter, and abandoned by many of his followers. In his darkest hour, he stood alone. But even in that, God was preparing something greater. His suffering led to salvation. His pain led to purpose. The separation was not a setback, it was part of the divine plan. When people walk away, when doors close, when life shifts unexpectedly, it is easy to feel like you are losing. But God does not take something away without a reason. If someone betrayed you, it means they were never meant to go where God is leading you. If a door closed, it means a better one is waiting. Separation is painful, but it is also the beginning of something new. Seasons of separation are also seasons of growth. When you are alone, you have the opportunity to strengthen your faith, to develop your character, to refine your vision. If Joseph had stayed with his brothers, he never would have developed the leadership skills that made him a ruler in Egypt. If Jesus had remained surrounded by crowds, he never would have fulfilled his mission on the cross. Sometimes you have to be separated so you can hear God clearly, so you can grow without distraction, so you can step into the fullness of your calling. God does not waste anything. Every betrayal, every loss, every moment of isolation is part of the preparation. You may not see it now, but there is something greater ahead. The pain of separation will soon be overshadowed by the purpose that follows. What seems like a breaking point is actually a breakthrough in the making. When people betray you, when they walk away without warning, when they turn their backs on you after you gave them loyalty, it hurts. It makes you question everything. You wonder why they did it, what you did wrong, and how someone you trusted could change so quickly. But what if their departure was not a loss, but a blessing in disguise? What if God removed them because he was making room for something better? There are people in your life who are only meant to be there for a season. Some people come into your life not to stay, but to teach you something. They may have been good for a time, but God sees the bigger picture. He knows the hearts of people in ways you never could. He sees what they say about you when you are not in the room. He sees their true motives, their hidden jealousy, and the ways they would hold you back if they remained too long. You may have thought they were a permanent part of your story, but God knew they were only temporary, so he allowed them to show their true colors. He allowed them to leave so they wouldn't block what he was preparing for you. Sometimes we try to hold on to people who have already let go of us. We keep reaching for people who have already walked away. We cry over doors that God himself closed. But if they could leave, then they were never meant to stay. If they betrayed you, they were never truly for you. If they turned against you, it was because they were never committed to your future. Letting go feels painful, but what is more painful is holding on to something God has already removed. Look at the story of Abraham and Lot. They traveled together for years, but there came a time when their paths had to separate. Lot was not meant to go where God was taking Abraham. If Abraham had forced Lot to stay, he would have delayed his own promise. The moment Lot left, God revealed the next step in Abraham's journey. Some blessings are waiting on the other side of separation. The longer you hold on to people who are not meant for your future, the longer you delay what God is trying to do in your life. Jesus experienced this too. Many people followed him, listened to him, and even called him their leader. But when things got difficult, when it was no longer convenient to be associated with him, they left. Even his own disciples, the ones closest to him, abandoned him in his darkest moment. But their departure did not stop his purpose. It did not prevent him from fulfilling what God had planned. Sometimes people have to leave so you can move forward. Sometimes their absence is what allows your elevation. God is not trying to hurt you when he removes people from your life. He is trying to protect you. He is making space for the right people, the right opportunities, the right blessings. What you lost is nothing compared to what he is bringing. The job you didn't get, the relationship that ended, the friend who turned into an enemy. It may have felt like rejection, but in reality it was redirection. Trust that God knows what he is doing. Trust that if someone was meant to stay, nothing could have taken them away. If they left, if they betrayed you, if they no longer stand beside you, then their role in your life is over. Stop chasing what God has removed. Stop trying to bring back what he has already replaced. Let them go, because what is ahead is far greater than what is behind. God is clearing the way, not to punish you, but to position you. Pain has a way of making us believe that we are defeated. When people betray you, when they lie about you, when they turn their backs on you, it can feel like the end. the disappointment, the heartache, the feeling of being let down by those you trusted. It can be overwhelming. But what if the very thing that was meant to destroy you is what God will use to elevate you? What if this setback is not your downfall, but the setup for your greatest comeback? Life is full of moments that don't make sense at first. You give your best to people, only to have them walk away. You stay loyal, only to be met with disloyalty. You pour love, energy, and time into relationships, only to be repaid with rejection. It is tempting to believe that everything is falling apart, but in reality, everything is falling into place. God is not blind to your pain. He saw the betrayal before it happened. He saw the disappointment before it reached you, and he already made a plan to turn it around for your good. Look at Joseph. His brothers sold him into slavery, thinking they were getting rid of him for good. They thought they had put an end to his dreams, but what they didn't realize was that their betrayal was the very thing that positioned him for the palace. Every painful step he took, being thrown into a pit, being falsely accused, being forgotten in prison, was not a detour. It was a direct path to his destiny. When the time was right, God took Joseph from the lowest place and raised him to the highest position in Egypt. The very brothers who betrayed him had to come back and stand before him, not knowing that the one they tried to destroy was the very one God had chosen to save them. God has a way of turning pain into purpose. He has a way of using rejection as redirection. When people count you out, God counts you in. When they try to silence you, God gives you a greater platform. When they try to block your blessings, God makes sure they see you walk into them. No betrayal, no disappointment, no act of injustice can stop the plan of God. What was meant to push you down will be the very thing that lifts you up. Jesus himself experienced this. He was betrayed by one of his own disciples. He was abandoned by those who once followed him. He was mocked, beaten, and crucified. The enemy thought he had won. The people who hated him thought they had silenced him forever. But they didn't realize that the very thing they did to destroy him was the very thing God used to bring salvation to the world. His greatest moment of suffering was followed by his greatest victory. There are people who have tried to hold you back, who have spoken against you, who have walked away when you needed them most. But their actions do not have the final say over your life. They may have left you, but God never will. They may have tried to break you, but God is about to build you. What they meant for harm, God will use for your elevation. Nothing that was done to you will be wasted. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of wondering why, God is collecting it all, and he is about to use it for something greater. The pain of betrayal will not be the end of your story. It is only the beginning of a testimony that will leave people speechless. The ones who thought they had stopped you will have no choice but to watch as God blesses you in ways they never expected. Your comeback is already in motion, and nothing can stop what God has set in place. There comes a time in life when the people who betrayed you will have no choice but to witness what God is doing in your life. They thought they were burying you, but they were only planting you. They believed their actions would stop your progress, but they only pushed you closer to your destiny. The very ones who walked away, who doubted you, who spoke against you, will have to watch as God lifts you up in ways they never imagined. Betrayal is painful, but it is not permanent. It may have felt like an ending, but in God's hands it was only a transition. When people hurt you, they assume that they have taken something from you. They assume that their absence, their rejection, their attempts to destroy your name or break your spirit will leave you weak and hopeless. But what they fail to realize is that God does not allow betrayal without a purpose. He does not allow people to walk away from your life unless their role in your story is over. What they meant to harm you will only propel you into what God has already ordained for you. Joseph's brothers betrayed him, but years later they had to stand before him as he sat in a position of power. The same people who threw him into a pit, who sold him into slavery, who assumed they had erased him from their lives, were forced to come back and ask for his help. They did not know that the brother they betrayed was now the man in charge of the resources they needed to survive. God had elevated Joseph to a place where the same people who tried to harm him had no choice but to acknowledge what God had done in his life. When God's favor is on you, nothing and no one can stop what he has planned. People may plot against you, they may try to sabotage you, they may think they have closed doors that you will never be able to reopen, but God does not need their approval to bless you. He does not need their validation to elevate you. In fact, sometimes he allows people to walk away just so he can bless you in their absence. Sometimes he allows betrayal so that when your breakthrough comes, there will be no doubt that it was his hand at work. Jesus was betrayed by Judas, denied by Peter, abandoned by his followers, but none of that stopped his mission. Those who thought they had defeated him were the same ones who had to witness his resurrection. The same people who mocked him had to hear about the power of his name being spread across the world. What looked like a moment of defeat was actually a setup for the greatest victory in history. There are people who may have laughed at your struggles, who may have counted you out, who may have assumed you would never recover from what they did to you. But what they do not realize is that God is not finished with you yet. They will see the doors he opens for you. They will hear about the ways he blesses you. They will witness how the very thing they tried to use against you became the foundation of your testimony. You do not need to seek revenge. You do not need to fight battles that belong to God. The best response to betrayal is to let God handle it. He is the one who lifts up and brings down. He is the one who takes what was meant for evil and turns it into good. The very people who walked away will look back in disbelief when they see how far God has taken you. The ones who left you broken will have to witness how he restores you. The same mouths that spoke against you will have to admit that God's favor was on you all along.